Welcome back to the Notary Podcast hosted by me, Daniel C. Lewis. And today we're going to have a very special guest, Jacqueline Phillips. You're not going to want to miss this one. Cue the music. Welcome back to the Notary Podcast hosted by me, Daniel C. Lewis. And if you like this podcast, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. This week, we have a very special guest. I'm so happy that I was able to get her on the podcast. We have none other than Jacqueline Phillips. Am I pronouncing that right? Hopefully I'm pronouncing it right.
Yes, you are. Absolutely.
Yes. Jacqueline is a seasoned notary entrepreneur. She actually works for the National Notary Association on the hotline. She worked at Notarize. She has a wealth of knowledge. Welcome to the podcast, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Daniel, for having me. This is exciting. I've been watching some of your podcasts, and I think counted an honor that you'd have me on your podcast.
No, I am honored to have you on the podcast because I've met you a couple of years ago, and I was always very impressed. In fact, I was a little intimidated to just come and approach you. You have such a wealth of knowledge about this industry, and you're particularly special because you work at the National Notary Association on the hotline. Can you tell us about your current role at the NNA hotline and what kind of inquiries do you typically get?
Yes, absolutely. I count the hotline as you need to have the hotline as a notary, especially if you're starting out or even if you're a seasoned notary. Having that ability to call in and ask those questions about simple things about a notarial certificate, like what goes in this blank. And the main one that we see is a lot of pronouns, right? We don't think about pronouns. We're thinking about names. The notaries get stuck on pronouns. They're like, what goes in the blank? It's like he, she, they. And they're like, oh, I should have known that. So those kind of questions are great. And then we have a lot of questions about, let's see, a signer that's their arms in a cast. How do they sign the document, right? So does your state have signature by proxy? Does your state have signature by mark? So we walk the notaries through their state's specific laws on those kind of things. So we get a myriad of questions on the hotline, but I just love the interaction with notaries. But my main thing I'm going to say right now is call before you notarize. Don't call me after you've notarized the document. The signer has walked away and then you've done an error. Then you have to retrace your steps, right? So call while you're with the signer, call before you get with the signer if you have the documents. And the hotline, the team is amazing. They will walk you through, make sure that you're notarizing compliantly to your state so that when you walk away, you know that you've done a compliant notarization for that signer.
Oh, very, very. That's such great advice. Great advice. I know you worked for years at Notarize. How was your experience at Notarize shaped you as a notary entrepreneur?
Oh my goodness. I started back in 2016, so I've almost been a Ron for 10 years. So that just blows my mind that I'm saying I've been a Ron for 10 years. And all the experience that I learned there, it's been amazing. I have to say, I came from a loan signing background. And when I went to notarize, it was all general notary public work. And I mean, you saw every type of document, any kind of document. My favorite one is still, I tell the story, is a mom. She was at the soccer field and her underage daughter needed to go to the club. And so Texas has a document that gets notarized in order for your underage child to go to the club. I know, I see the look on your face, Daniel. Wow. So the document types that we saw was amazing. Florida has one. If your underage child wants a tattoo, your parent actually has to sign and notarize the document. So I'm sure some of you have seen that. But I did a lot of general notary public work. So seeing, I would say, every and any type of document with notarize. And then I really got a grasp of not only acknowledgments and jurats, but every type that you could see. Learned about signature witnessing, something that I don't do here in Virginia. So learning to explain to a signer, that's not a certificate that I can do here. These are my choices, or directing them to a notary in their state in order to do those notarizations. So I learned so much about general notary public work. And then I even learned some more as a loan signing agent, because we did do those documents as well. And of course, knowing being a Ron, seller packages are our bread and butter, right? Because you don't have the lender documents and all those e-notes. So if you're a Ron and you want to expand, general notary public work is where it's at, and doing those seller packages is where it's at.
Wow. That's very interesting. Very interesting. What do you think are the most common questions or concerns you receive on the hotline?
Oh, most common. It's just knowing how to notarize a certificate. Like is that certificate, is this a document that I can notarize, right? That's probably the most. Can I notarize this document? And I think if notaries would keep it simple, like the vital records documents, right? You can't certify a copy of a vital record, a marriage license, birth certificate, those documents, court recorded documents. Everything pretty much is free, right? You can do wills, you can do codicils, you can do all trust documents. Estate planning is really big right now for notaries, but there's really not a document that you can't notarize, right? So a lot of notaries will come in and ask, can I notarize that document? And then another thing that they ask is, am I notarizing a document correctly, right? And I say there's 5 steps that the NNA teaches. And if you follow those 5 steps every single time, no matter what the document, you're going to have a great ending. You're going to make sure personal appearance. Make sure the signer, don't get that call, oh, my aunt needs me to notarize the document and she's in New York and I'm here in Florida. Can I notarize that document? No, personal appearance is required, right? And then you're going to look at that ID. Your state has given you a list of IDs that you're going to be able to use. Look at those IDs. After that, we are going to journal, right? Even if your state doesn't require it, Virginia doesn't. I journal. I'm going to journal, get all the information that I need in my journal. Then we're going to have the signer look through any blanks, fill in any blanks, have them sign. And then the last, but the best and the magic is you're going to sign and notarize that document. So if you follow those 5 steps every single time, you're going to have a compliant notarization.
Well, you mentioned so much there, and this is a question I get a lot. How do you keep up with all the changes, the revolving happen in the notary world? How do you keep up with all that?
Well, I have to say that the NNA's Laws and Resources tab is amazing. If you have not used it, you should be using it. And you can put in your state specifically, and it'll tell you what laws have been recently changed. I just did that with Miss Elaine at her conference. We were talking about wills and codicils. So what did she do? She went straight to the Laws and Resources, put in Maryland, and we saw that there have been some updates to wills and trust in the state of Maryland. Her and I discussed it, and she actually put a little blurb out to her notaries there in Maryland. So using that Laws and Resources, and it's free. You don't even have to be a member of the NNA to use that tab. So why aren't notaries using it? So free tip for the day.
Oh, that's so awesome, because I hear there's a lot of different people online, like Facebook University, TikTok College, giving people all kinds of advice with no background. As a speaker, I listen to speakers all the time that says you should do this, you should do that, that. And I wonder, well, where are you getting this information from? They never tell you. They just say, just listen to me. And you can go online and find that at the National Notary Association's website. What advice? Yeah, for free. Yes.
For free. And then, of course, your handbook, right? You should definitely be using your handbook. I review my handbook yearly. And then, of course, if your state has any type of emails or newsletter that they're sending out, you should be subscribed to that so that you can get updates directly from your state as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great advice. In fact, speaking of advice, what advice would you give first somebody who's just coming into the business? And then what advice would you give to somebody who is seasoned but struggling a little bit in this business?
All right. I'm going to tell you, if you are just starting out, I started out 22 years ago with the National Notary Association membership. You need that membership. You need the hotline. You need to be able to call when you're starting out on that first transaction, and you've taken training if your state requires it, but then you get those little jitters in your belly, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh my goodness, I want to make sure I still do this right. I think it's very important. I mean, it's $80 a year. I mean, one loan signing pays for that. One general notary public transaction can pay for that easily, if not two. So it will pay itself back to you by having that resource available to you. So I would definitely say that. And then for a seasoned notary, same. I just had a question the other day. I work the hotline, and I'm like, I called the hotline, and I'm like, I have a question. I'm not quite sure which way I should go with this. It's more sometimes a judgment call, right?
Yeah.
If your state doesn't have any resources about a certain situation, where do I go to? I go to the Code of Responsibility, right? And I call the NNA. What do we have for best practice? Sometimes your state doesn't have anything, but best practice is sometimes great. Like, I don't have a journal. Like, my state doesn't require a journal, but I might have somebody says, hey, Jacqueline, I know you do a journal. What can you just give me the journal? I'm like, no, these are the things I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask for the month and the year of the notarization, the name of the signer, and tell me what type of notarization it is.
Yes.
It's best practice, right? So that I get something written before I release my journal. Yes. So those are the things why I love the hotline.
Very, very good. How do you see technology like remote online notarization affecting this industry in the future?
Definitely, you're going to see a lot more of it, right? Because having that video, having that journal, because every state requires a journal with remote online notarization, where I think it's like 50% of the states don't even require a journal. It's required. And I see a lot of notaries will call in and say, hey, I've done a signing with such and such business partner, and they're requiring my journal. And so how do I give that journal to them? And you have to remember that your journal is not just a journal entry now, but it's also the video. So making sure that if your state requires a platform, that you're on a state approved platform. That's going to be my number one. Go look and see what your state requires, which platforms are allowed on your state.
Yes.
And then, of course, I see it happening. I'm going to see that more transitioning to getting rid of paper. I did a signing last night, and the signer was like, you just killed a tree when you did this. I go, I know. I killed 2 trees because I have your package and my package. Yeah. So I can see as we move to more of trying to get rid of some of the paper, just from an ecological standpoint of view, that point of view. So, but it's going to be a transition time. You're talking about things that have been done the same way for 70, 80, almost 100 years. Yeah. So it'll be a transition, but I can see it happening within the next 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think is some of the most common mistakes notaries make?
Believe it or not, personal appearance. Not making sure that signer is in front of you. Like, and that's the one that can revoke your notary commission, right, Daniel?
Yep.
So making sure that signer appears before you is important. And then I'm going to say the notary not notarizing the document correctly. Like, just simple things as far as when you see the byline, subscribe and sworn before me by. Yeah. Notaries will put their name instead of the signer's name. So we get a lot of calls back about that. And then if you're in a state that does not allow the notary to make a correction to their notarization, then it's a whole new meeting in front of the signer in order to complete a brand new certificate. Yeah. So I'm going to say it's personal appearance and just making sure your certificate is in tip-top shape.
Yeah. And you mentioned the National Notary Association. I know you're an ambassador, I'm an ambassador, but can you just tell people who are on the fence, should I belong to the National Notary Association? What are some of the benefits, other benefits for belonging to the National Notary Association?
Number one, of course, is the hotline. Number two is you don't even have to be, from a membership standpoint of view, there's LegalShield. So sometimes notaries will call in and say, should I be in an LLC, right? That's not a notary question. That's more of a business question, right? Yeah. So you need an attorney or an accountant to even walk you through those things. So LegalShield is something that you can get as a benefit. There is a small cost to it. It's a reduced cost. And then reduced cost for some of your supplies. It's a great place to just order all your supplies in one place. As a RON, that digital certificate is required for some of the platforms. And you can go to Item Trust and purchase it through them. But if you come to the NNA, you can get it at a reduced fee. So those are some of the things that I'm going to say are probably the top things that I can think of. And if you're a member, having access to your certificates. Well, how could I forget that? Having a certificate with the instructions on the back on exactly how to fill it out. As a member, you get those certificates for free. But if you're not a member, you can also purchase them on the supplies list on the website.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. One last question. What piece of advice would you give notaries, no matter where they are in their field? What piece of advice would you give them to be successful?
I think Tom said it the best. Notaries are more important than ever now, right? Having that personal touch, having your gut in that room when you're doing a signing, or if you're doing a power of attorney and you're in a hospital setting, that you can kind of look into the situation and be like, this isn't a document we should be notarizing. The person isn't coherent enough, or you're going into a loan signing and you feel like someone's being coerced into signing a document, or you get an ID that doesn't meet your state's requirements because it's a fraudulent ID. That requires a human touch. So be that human in the room fighting fraud, because let me tell you, fraud is at an all-time high right now. Even from a notary, from a RON perspective, the deep fake, it still requires that human touch. It requires me to do those checks, do a human check, have them shake their head, right? And if it's a deep fake, you're going to see that little wiggly space that's going on there. So being the human in the room is more important than ever as a notary.
Oh, it's just such great information. I don't know why I haven't had you on the podcast before. It's such great information. Thank you so much, Jackie, for being here on the podcast. This has been one of my best podcasts. You've given some great information. I got to have you back. And if any final words, Jackie?
I just say go forth and stamp. I've been in this field for 22 years. And I love meeting signers, whether it be in person or virtually. My signer yesterday was on a boat in a yacht in Europe, right? So you're traveling the world with remote online notarization. But even if you're doing it in person, I was in the backwoods enjoying just nature, just because of where I live. But be that person in the room and just enjoy being a notary.
Thank you so much again for being here. Now, if you like this podcast, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Can't wait to do this again with Jackie. And next week, you don't want to miss the next week's podcast. So see you next week. Thank you again, Jackie.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It was a pleasure.